later. And as always, guys, you got any questions, please do pop them there in the chat box. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. All right, the ES. So we had a small pullback yesterday. I found support and skyrocketed back to the upside again. So on all the indices we do follow here, the ES, NASDAQ, YM, I don't think the Russell has that much power behind it just yet, but all been following our trajectory higher. Just as a quick recap, we've got this pitchfork that I've drawn here. I actually updated this pitchfork a little while back, which is now my operating rating, which I call angle of ascent for the ES currently. And if you're familiar with my analysis, I do use market geometry, a bit of pattern analysis, a bit of wave analysis, try to figure out where support or resistance might step in, as well as where price might be moving to next. That, and obviously our levels to lock, which are these blue lines, red lines, and these dashed lines that we have as well, which quite often lines up sometimes with market geometry levels, can also attract price and act as support and resistance as well. So on the ES today, before we do get to that, yesterday the Fed decided not to raise interest rates, so they kept it the same. I think that was the first time in 15 months or something, if I read that correctly, but they did indicated that there will be potentially 2 more rate hikes for the remainder of this year sometime. So yeah, the markets did like that, I think, although we did have a blip lower yesterday. We also had, let me just see quickly, where is that now? Yeah, we had unemployment claims actually been increasing, higher than forecasted, came in at 262,000. So again, these days, any sort of bad news is kind of good news for the markets. Market spiked back to the upside. It's been trading sideways within the confines or the range of this previous candle here. And that was yesterday, right? That was sort of, I think, during the or after the Fed rate decision and those FMC meetings that they had. So yeah, price finally broke up back to new highs. Sorry, I won't say finally, it wasn't actually just a brief pause to the sideways. Price found support just shy of today's S1 at 4,392 and has since made its way back up above today's pivot point, already closed above that on the previous candle, that pivot point being at 4,415, and has just broke through today's R1, already smashed through today's projected range highs and the first and second deviation, which is at right now. It might act as resistance. It's about 4,456 and a quarter where price is currently trading. That being said, we do have this market geometry line way up here, currently residing around 4,509. So that's sort of like a projection or a target area that I think price could still move towards. Again, we might get any sort of, like retracements in between or so forth. But thus far, price has been following this projection higher. Whether it will reach that upper median line today or tomorrow or maybe next week, we'll obviously have to wait and see. So as time passes, this line will also creep up. Maybe we even have one of our levels to lock at that line if price does make it that high. And then I'll sort of be a bit more cautious on the bullish side and potentially expect a stronger sort of correction back to the downside again. So that's the ES, very strong. Same thing on the NQ, minor pullback, straight back to the upside again. We also have here, in this case, it is all the way back here, a shift pitchfork that I drew. I just think the setting's working way better for the projection to the upside. We've had a previous area where price pulled back to a median line, found support, and it's been riding or hugging this upper median line for quite some time. Yesterday fell a little bit below it again, and boom, there we go, back to the upside again. So although price were briefly below today's pivot point at 15,151, also just fell short of S1 at 15,058.5 and has since now made new highs. Just reached today's projected range high, that's around 15,306, and has just tagged R1 at can't see that label now. Where is that? 15,325. So same thing here. Expecting more upside on the NQ, with the NQ being so strong and actually being the strongest out of the other indices. We might see a move eventually up to this upper, what we call a red warning line. But probably won't be today or tomorrow, maybe next week or weeks still in, in the next coming weeks, whatever the case might be. So any sort of pullbacks for the ES and NQ, for that matter, even the YM, I'll treat as corrective in nature, and obviously try to figure out where support might step in. But yeah, already made some really nice, decent moves on the ES and the NQ. I believe the YM did as well. So yeah, next sort of area potential resistance could be this median line sloping to the upside. That sort of falls in line with today's R2 at 15,418.75. And we also have that projected high deviation or second deviation about 15,429. Again, don't know if there's enough momentum left for the NQ to go that high. We're already into the afternoon session. But yeah, just another nice spike high, and also good to see that price has been following our projection pretty well thus far. Right, that brings us to the YM. Just a quick recap over here. Also have a pitchfork like I do on most of my markets here, sloping to the upside. This one also being a shift pitchfork. Previously, there was sort of towards the end of May, we were looking at an area where support might step in. I did mention that we potentially were seeing the end of a WXY or a double zigzag pattern. It ended right at a 61.8 foot retracement, and since then price has been skyrocketing all the way back up again. I see on the current candle, it just took out these highs that were set on the 1st of May. So yeah, we do now have, well, should we say a pip or a new high here for the YM. Price actually opened below today's pivot point, which was at 34,303. Nearly made it to today's projected range low at 34,157, and boom, straight back to the upside, printed a new high. Next up, from a resistance perspective, we might see price still gravitate towards today's second deviation high at 34,712, I believe. And we also have R2 slightly above that at 34,737. So also bullish on the YM. Also just a really good example of how these median lines sometimes act as a magnet as well. In this case, a pullback towards it, find support at it, and then we have liftoff again. So more upside potential still, in my opinion, on the YM towards this upper median line. Again, whether that's going to be reached today, tomorrow, next week, whatever the case might be, we'll just have to wait and see. Should price get close to that, then I'll start being cautious again that we might expect a deeper correction at some stage. Before I go to the Russell, I think Mohammed's asking me which indicators on your chart. You're talking about these deviation ones. The R1 pivot points and R2 is basically your standard indicators that comes with NinjaTrader. But the projected high deviations or ranges, as we call them, they are actually one of our proprietary indicators here at Ninjacators. Maybe Nathan can meanwhile find a link for you to go and check that out. But they are based on previous days' volatility, and very uncanny how price tends to gravitate towards them, as well as find support and resistance at them. Makes really good places to place targets, or you be aware of potential reversals. So that's they are called our projected range highs and lows indicator. All right. So maybe Nathan, if you're there, see if you can quickly find a link there for Mohammed, and maybe just post that for him if you'll be interested to check that out. All right, so that's the YM, still expecting more upside. This brings me to the Russell. Quick recap on the Russell. For a very long time, Russell's been stuck in a sideways range. Broke above that range in the beginning of this month, pulled back a little bit back into it, and again, moved strongly back to the upside. Here too, I have a shift pitchfork sloping to the upside. And I've been using this setting because I think it is the better setting to use has been sort of acting as support and resistance, these median lines, really, really well. We had a previous instance when price broke above, it reached that upper median line, pulled back. It actually blasted through this, what we call an upper red warning line. But as I've shown you guys previously, quite often, if you see an overshoot or undershoot, depending what direction you're trading, you can just draw a ray or a line or trend line, whatever you might prefer, parallel to one of these median lines and projected from those previous areas where, in this case, I had an overshoot. And you can see that prices again found resistance at that same angle. Okay. Now, we didn't see the Russell actually pull back into this upper median line, but I guess if we had to do this, it came very, very close to actually finding support. So also bullish on the Russell. Again, a little bit weaker than the ES and NQ, obviously a different indice. But yeah, we had a strong decline actually over here. So maybe if price were to move lower, then watch out, this upper median line might act as support. All right, so sort of been hovering here at this, what I call a 50% dashed median line, price being below today's pivot point at 1901 spot 8. I think if we do get a strong move above that, we could potentially see a continuation towards new highs, maybe even going firstly to today's projected range high at 1914. All right, so that's the Russell. And then the gold. If you guys attended yesterday's session, I did have these lines on my chart indicating that we're potentially in the latter phases of a descending triangle that did sort of play out pretty well. Descending triangle, in this case, a bearish sort of pattern. We had this low here towards the end of May. That was an A, a B, probably a C, a D, and then an E. I think we had this little move higher yesterday while we were doing yesterday's profit at noon, and expecting another move to the downside to potentially challenge these lows. That did happen. And now we're getting a very strong bounce to the upside. Now, just a quick note here on triangles. They quite often, if you're looking in this case in a bearish phase, could be a bullish phase, whatever direction the market's moving. Quite often, if you get a triangle, they tend to be your penultimate correction prior to important high or low. In this case, a low. So if you've also been following my analysis on gold for a while, we labeled this as a 5-wave sequence a while back. This was sort of towards the beginning of May, indicating that we could potentially see a deeper move to the downside. That did occur. The question was just then that we see a 5-wave here. We counted it as this, and then were we going to get a nice higher move back up? And if we did though. We didn't get a big one. I was going to treat that as corrective, that we potentially see another decline. But then price start moving in this triangle and then moved lower. So I'm currently thinking that this was the first sequence lower of a much larger correction that could still take prices lower on gold. That being said, just knowing that triangles with a high probability tend to appear as your penultimate correction during a decline or a move to the upside, that this was potentially the end of its first phase, and over the near term we could potentially see a correction higher, as what I'm going to treat it as, that could retrace a decent portion of this decline here, maybe all the way back to 38.2, 50%, maybe even 61.8. Again, we'll track this obviously for you guys live when we have I shouldn't have done that, but anyway, the next sessions I'll draw that in after today's session. I shouldn't have deleted that pitchfork, but that's okay. So the strong bounce to the upside is indicative to me that that first phase low potentially ended. So I would be expecting, might be wrong, obviously, at least a break of these previous highs that were set in the beginning of June. Whether that's going to happen nice and fast, or we're going to start seeing a slow grind to the upside, we'll just have to wait and see. So price found support at today's S2 at 1939. It fell short of today's projected low deviation at 1934, made its way up above today's pivot point 1960. Just blasted through R1. the next level of the price might gravitate towards is today's second deviation projected high, and that is at 1974.4. So I am expecting over the near term potentially higher prices, but like I mentioned, I'm going to be treating this as corrective, i.e. a correction against this strong decline that we've been seeing. All right. So let's see how things plan out. We don't have, obviously, another session tomorrow, but we'll retouch things again on Monday and see where price is at and where the price is indeed building its way back up to the upside again, i.e. a correction in my books. Crude oil, on the other hand, like I mentioned yesterday, in a very large range, very volatile range as well. You have sharp declines, V-shaped bottoms, inverted V-shaped tops, price sort of just, bouncing around here. Very, very volatile on crude oil indeed. So in the long term, I still think that crude oil could potentially move lower. The question that's still bothering me a little bit here is, what is this? If it is corrective in nature, we first thought that since this low that we had the spike here, that this was an ABC. We had to move lower. Now, I thought at that stage, this was just a single zigzag and price will make its way lower. Again, it didn't. It found support and then it moved up. And then the Saudis came out, I think it was last week, Monday, mentioned that they're going to start cutting production to boost price. It actually opened at Sunday's trade last week above these previous highs, immediately reversed low again and again found support. So really don't know which direction crude oil is going to go, guys. Probably out of the other markets we cover here at Profits at Noon, a little bit on the sidelines here with crude oil. Very volatile. So, maybe better to trade this intraday. I'm just not sure what this pattern is. Is it building maybe a strong bottom like we've seen here in the Russell? Although, obviously, again, a different market. That we're seeing something potentially like this that eventually will break out of a range. So, that being said, these market geometry levels aren't really working well either. So I'll have to really reconsider drawing or spending a bit more time on the market geometry side for you guys and have something available for you on Monday. Price nearly reached today's S1 at 67.86. Made its way nicely above today's pivot point at 69.27. Just busted through R1, and it's almost pipped this high here that was set. When was this? Was it yesterday? And we also have today's projected range high at 70.75. So that might be an area of resistance. This might be corrective. Again, we'll just have to see how price behaves, because I really don't have a clue what's going on while price is staying within this large range. So it might be doing something like that. But it's also very close to today's projected range high. If we're going to get another move that mimics this move to the upside, we might even see a bit of a higher move to the upside. Maybe even going towards R2 around 71, 77. So over the very short term, bullish on crude oil. But again, over the long term, while price is stuck in this insanely crazy range over here, you just got to be careful. Might see some more sideways action for quite some time. All right, and that really concludes the analysis side of things. Not too much has changed since yesterday, other than the ES again skyrocketing to the upside. Very bullish indeed. Gold that broke out of that pattern we identified yesterday, but just like I said, this could potentially be that first sequence to the downside that completed, and we might see another move back up, but I'm going to be treating that as corrective. All right, so that is it from the analysis side of things. Not too much else to add there. You got any questions, please let me know, guys. Maybe something on the YouTube side of things, Nathan?
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much, Richard. As you can see, my green screen, as always, acting up a little bit here. Zoom is the best. If you have any questions for us, whether you're on YouTube, here with us in Zoom, please feel free to fire away in the chat. I have good news for you, Mohammed. I was able to track down a link for that fast track membership. So not only is it available But here, let me just go ahead and share that in the chat with you. So that would take you right to the order form for the fast track. The other link I found was just a video with the announcement. It sounds like you're kind of up to speed on what it is and what it's offering. Of course, here on the order form, it gives you a breakdown. But yeah, I hope that's helpful to you. If anyone else was interested in that or had any questions about that, that link is there available in the chat if you want to take a look at that Ninjacators fast track membership. Awesome. Well, and of course, thank you, Richard. I don't know if I said thank you. It is customary to thank you for those insights for the analysis. Incredibly valuable information. So thank you very much. As mentioned, if you have any questions about that, please feel free to fire away in the chat there. We'll hang around for a few minutes here and just make sure everybody's taken care of before we head into the weekend. Of course, we had a great suggestion yesterday. It doesn't look like he is here with us today, Richard. Same guy with the chart. Had a great suggestion for us to start releasing sort of a calendar or at least an agenda for the week. So that is actually something that feedback was received, appreciated, and accepted. So that is something, we're going to work to shoot out some updates at the beginning of each week just to align our expectations and as we get a little more organized with our guests and things like that. So I know coming up, and especially in July, we plan to do specialized Prophets at Noon sessions. That'll be a little longer where we'll bring in a special guest who's able to kind of go into greater detail than we're able to sometimes. So that's very cool. That's definitely something we'll make you aware of ahead of time. And then, of course, the much rumored, oft-discussed Levels to Lock newsletter, which we'd love to be rolling out to you guys and gals as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So I know you saw these levels here. If you see still on Richard's chart, those blue and red lines, those are what we call our levels to lock, and we're checking on those in all of these sessions. Okay, Mohammed, it looks like you're already registered. Okay, excellent. Was there any issue with your access? Anything go wrong? Or if there was any hiccup, just let us know. We'll be happy to connect you to support. Make sure you're cool, comfortable, and confident with everything you've got there. Awesome. So a little quiet on the YouTube side. If anybody on YouTube had any questions for us, know that we do see you. We have visibility here in that chat if there's anything on your mind. A quick note to everyone on YouTube, if you want to join us here in what we call the VIP section, the bottle service here within Zoom directly, there is a link beneath the video in that description. That'll get you registered for the Zoom events. You'll receive reminders. And in addition to that, actually what I was just discussing, the sort of agendas that we're going to roll out, registering for those Zoom events will also give you access to that. So keep us all on the same page. Excellent. Well, it looks like we have a relatively quiet crowd, which again is a testament to the efficacy of your analysis, Richard. If there's no questions, that means it was perfect, right? That's how that works. Okay.
I would hope so.
Excellent. Well, in lieu of any Q&A, and we're going to hang just one more minute here for one of our other customs, another of our traditions, but if anything else comes to your mind, fire away there. We'll be happy to take a look for you. But this brings us, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your point of view, to the dad joke of the day, our terrible pun, our terrible joke. So again, any questions, feel free to fire away. What we're going to do, if you're new to these sessions, we just like to have a little fun on the way out the door. Laughs, grunts, groans, sighs, all are appropriate responses to these dad jokes. So we'll go ahead and make this available in the chat. Sometimes the puns are even funnier when you see it spelled out. So here we go. Richard, what do you do with a dead chemist?
No. I've no idea.
What do we do with a dead chemist? Not the most valuable information you'll glean from this session, but maybe important.
Hit me up. Let me see.
Awesome. We got nothing. Nobody in the chat's got it. And again, we'll have our Jeopardy music queued up in a future session. So what do you do with a dead chemist? You heard it here, folks. You bury him. And this is one you have to see spelled out to truly appreciate it. So go ahead and check it there in the chat.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
What do you do with a dead chemist? You bury him. Oof. Ah.
Yeah, a bit of a hard one.
Right. Stung a little bit, right?
Yeah, as always. I think you still have to work a little bit on some of them, but yeah, not too bad. Better than yesterday's, I think.
Yesterday's was horrible, and that's saying something. So that's one of my favorites, actually. I'll probably break that one out again in a future session because it's so on topic, but I digress. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you for bearing that dad joke, and thank you, Richard, as always, for the valuable insights, the in-depth analysis.
You're welcome, guys.
If anyone has any questions after we get out of this session, if anything comes up or you happen to think of something, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You head over to ninjacators.com. You will see there's a phone number plastered all over the website. There's a contact form, alternatively support@ninjacators.com. There's really no way to not get in touch with us. So if anything comes up, please feel free to reach out. One of the customer support ninjas will be happy to take care of that for you. And then, of course, rolling into next week, we hope to see all of you Monday at noon Eastern for the next session. We'll align you for the week. It's one of our more important sessions, so I hope to see you there. And we'll also have some announcements, a preview of some of that agenda coming together, and then a very special guest that we'll have in store for you next Thursday. So all that's coming your way next week at Profits at Noon. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us. Richard, it's been a while since I've asked, so I'll give you just one shot at some parting wisdom as we're on the way out the door, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up.
Not really too much wisdom from my side. Just behave yourselves this weekend, and we'll touch base again on Monday. Things are bullish on the indices, so I think we've done a pretty decent job getting the direction right on most of these things. But as always, if you do trade, always just keep your risk in control. And although we do mention levels and stuff here, hopefully you do use some of our indicators to either confirm your entries or so forth. But not really too much to add other than have a great weekend. And thanks for attending again, and we'll touch base again on Monday.
Awesome. Well, some of our best parting wisdom. Have a great weekend. And that extends to everyone. And I will do my best to do so here with the in-laws. So whatever your hurdles may be this weekend, have a good one. We will see you all again on Monday. So thank you so much, everybody, and we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers, everyone. Take care. Goodbye.